so much for joining us for today's Innovation Lab entitled Innovation to Address COVID-19 in Thailand. My name is Lana Zaman, and I'm joining today from the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, where I work in the Energy Division. We're really thrilled to host this event in collaboration with the Thailand-based Circular Design Lab, and we're excited to have some great speakers. So let me begin by introducing Mr. Kaveh Zahedi, Deputy Executive Director of UN ESCAP, who will be giving opening remarks. Kaveh, the floor is yours.
Very good. Thank you so much, Lana. And on behalf of ESCAP, and I'm very, very happy to welcome everyone to this Innovation Lab. Thanks to you, Lana. Thanks to the ESCAP Innovation team. Thanks to the Circular Design Lab for really bringing us together today. For those of you that may not know, ESCAP is the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. We are part of the UN's development system, and we've been supporting the countries in Asia Pacific with their development journeys for over 70 years. But I think it's fair to say that in all of those 70 years, there has not been a bigger challenge than the one that we are facing now, the challenge of COVID-19. The United Nations Secretary General said, in his words, the COVID-19 pandemic is one of the most dangerous challenges this world has faced in our lifetime. It is above all a human crisis with severe health and socio-economic consequences. And we're seeing those consequences play out across our region and of course here in Thailand. And as the UN, we're working across the health, the humanitarian, the development parts to address the needs arising from this very human crisis and to help countries eventually build back or build forward better. For us at ESCAP, this basically means three things. First of all, investing in people, especially women, vulnerable groups, through strengthening social protection, improving access to health and basic services, and boosting resilience and emergency preparedness. Second, supporting countries with sustainable and inclusive economic recovery that is actually aligned with the 2030 agenda, with the Paris Agreement, with all the aspirations that the countries have. And third is really restoring and building resilience in these supply chains, especially to support SMEs through regional and sub-regional coordination in trade, investment, transport, digital connectivity, essentially what brings us together today. But as laudable as our ambitions and all of this work has been, I guess many of us still feel that we could do more, right? Especially for the people and for the communities right on our doorsteps here in Thailand. And we look at the work of the innovators, we look at the work of the social entrepreneurs, many of whom will be speaking today with enormous admiration. So today we hope to learn more about that work, the work that's going on all around us to help the most impacted and the most vulnerable communities in Bangkok and in Thailand. And we also hope to help find some solutions to support these same organizations that are working in Thailand with those most in need through the crowdsourcing and the help that Courtney is going to give us. But maybe most important of all, we hope to find ways that each of us can help, whether it's through our work at the United Nations or as individuals living and working in Thailand. So thank you again for all of our speakers for agreeing to share their initiatives, to share their stories, to share their wisdom, as well as to all those joining ESCAP's Innovation Lab today. Back to you, Lana.
Thank you very much, Kaveh. And for opening remarks on the UN's work in Thailand, I'd like to introduce Ms. Geeta Sabarwal, the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Thailand. Ms. Geeta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kaveh and Lana, for this opportunity to engage with young innovators in this virtual lab. The onset of this global pandemic has changed the world, and there is no going back to business as usual. The UN in Thailand is defining its new normal, as it operationalizes its response to the pandemic. As the UN resident coordinator, my priority has been to seize the disruption created by COVID to reposition UN's response in country to be cutting edge, forward leaning, while offering thought leadership. We are bringing to bear pace and passion to advance sustainable development goals in partnership with young innovators like yourselves. I'm very keen to hear about the work that you're leading on to address the changing socioeconomic needs in Thailand and explore how the UN in Thailand can partner with you in the future. From where I sit, there are three key innovative interventions that the UN is prioritizing in partnership with government as we redefine our engagement in Thailand. First, the UN is seeking to bridge the digital divide in e-learning as technology is becoming the lifeline of society and the fuel to accelerate progress on SDGs. We are mapping the digital infrastructure countrywide to create a virtual, powerful ICT equity education GIS map to support the government to scale up ICT-enabled out-of-school and in-school learning. Second, the UN is exploring the speed and uptake of artificial intelligence and agro predictions and how farmers can use it to be better informed in advance of weather patterns that will affect agricultural crops together with the Met Department in Thailand. And third, the UN is seeking to create an app to enable rapid mapping of contributions of social enterprises to SDGs. Let me pause here and conclude by saying that for the UN in Thailand, innovations in the field of climate change is one of my top priorities. And I will be looking for new ideas and partnerships from today's virtual lab. Over to you, Lana.
Great. Thank you so much, Geeta and Kaveh, for those very inspiring opening remarks. I'd like to give now just a little bit of background about what drove today's Innovation Lab. So I'm here as part of the Innovation Task Team of ESCAP, which is a cross-divisional, cross-disciplinary group of staff really dedicated to promoting innovation. We're really focused on the goal of looking for ways to maximize the efficiency and impact of ESCAP within the Asia-Pacific region. And in that goal, we have a lot of innovation labs for the purpose of really listening to what are the new ideas, new approaches to problem solving, new solution, new designs for human-centered solutions. So that's one goal of the Innovation Lab. And the second is to have an interactive session for collaborative learning. How can we share ideas in a safe space? Whether we pursue these ideas or decide not to, how can we collaborate to create something that's more than the sum of its parts? So when the pandemic began and we were all at home, many of us working on COVID issues, particularly at the policy level, we also started to see that so many countries are really facing challenges at the grassroots level. And this gave us the incentive to want to look more at what's happening at the community level, the household level, the individual level, and especially what are some of the really creative solutions that have come out of this. So our first objective today is to share some of these very inspiring stories with you. I've been really excited to have had the opportunity to talk to some of these speakers and these real trailblazers in terms of seeing a problem and just taking charge, taking a lead in finding solutions. So that's our first objective, and I hope it inspires your work. Our second objective is to provide some information about how you can contribute for those who are interested, whether that's looking for opportunities to volunteer or just looking to know more about what's happening at communities and what kinds of skills are needed in this economy. And thirdly, we'd really like to crowdsource ideas. We want to hear from all of you. What do you see as challenges, as opportunities? What ideas might you have to help some of our speakers in their initiatives? And so on that note, I'm going to hand this over to my colleague, Courtney Lawrence, who can tell you more about our research and development activities. Courtney Lawrence is the Innovation and Sustainable Development Strategist of the Regional Innovation Center of the UNDP, as well as the co-founder of the Thailand-based Circular Design Lab. Courtney, you have the floor.
Great, thank you so much. So thank you again for this lovely introduction. I'm really happy to contribute today. I'm wearing two hats, as Lana mentioned. One is with working with the UNDP Regional Innovation Center based here in Bangkok as head of exploration. And actually, a significant part of our focus and our work is also on inclusive innovation across the region, not only from a policy perspective, but also from the grassroots angle. So this session to me is all the more interesting and relevant for that matter. The second one is with the Circular Design Lab. This is a 100% volunteer-driven open innovation platform. And so today we're going to experiment with a process, as Lana mentioned, for an ability for you to actually contribute and give back to those that are presenting. And I'll share with you how you're going to do that in this quick, this quick moment of sharing. So if you're joining us on the live stream, you'll notice that there are 2 URL links in the session description. One is going to be specifically to a virtual post-it. And you may be asking, well, what am I doing with this, this post-it? Well, let me share with you what it looks like and just quickly walk you through why and how. Ultimately, this is a digital way for you to allow the speakers in their organizations know the ways in which you're looking at the same challenges and opportunities, but also let them know what other things may be out there on the radar that could be of value for them to be ever more aware of. So if you look at this, this is a virtual post-it notes. Technically, it's a Google form, and it syncs in real time with a Kumu map. So the link to the Kumu map is also there in the session description on the YouTube live stream, but also on the virtual post-it. And in real time, by the end of the session, we hope that we have lots of ideas coming from you. But of course, our teams with the ESCAP Innovation Lab and myself with the UNDP side of things, we'll be looking at the data and also ways in which you are perceiving, thinking, and imagining the future, but also ways to engage and support the innovators that are sharing. So if you have any questions, just try to trust the process, click on a link, and on both sides of that, the Kumu as well as the virtual post-it note, they intersect together. So just play around. But we do ask that throughout the session, if you have questions, ideas, you can share it either through this this map or take them to the comment section as well. So over to Lana. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much, Courtney. And as all of you can see in your YouTube link, if you look at the written information, there are 3 links for you. So one of those is the virtual post-it, where you can contribute throughout the session. We really want to hear your ideas. There's also the Kumu board, which is the map demonstrating all of your ideas you have shared. And also there's a registration link. If you can, we ask that you please, either during or after this session, register so we know who's here. We're really happy to hear from all of you. Great, so without further ado, let's move to our speakers. It is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker to you, Ms. Natalie bin Nakrasert. She is the founder of COVID Thailand Aid. Natalie, I turn the floor to you.
Thank you, Lana. Hello, everyone. I'm Natalie, founder of COVID Thailand Aid. It's an honor to be with you today, so thank you for having me. COVID Thailand Aid is made up of passionate volunteers that wants to help vulnerable groups across Thailand. Back in March, I started COVID Thailand Aid when we first felt the first wave of pandemic because I have a 94-year-old grandma, and it made me realize, like, how am I going to take care of her during this pandemic? So I started to create a platform that connects people who wanted to help with people who wanted to help, who needed help, sorry. And I realized that so many people felt helpless and wanted to participate. And leveraging social media, let me just share my screen. Please let me know if you can see it. Okay, one moment. Okay, so leveraging social media, we grew from just one person, me, to 485 volunteers. We've now helped over 70,000 people across Thailand in 34 provinces, and we've raised over 2.8 million baht. In the beginning, we started with just focusing on the elderly, but we expanded help to orphanages, people with disabilities, refugees, and stateless individuals, including low-income families, as well as animal shelters. So we cover quite a bit now. You guys shouldn't be able to see my screen now, right? Okay, perfect. And what we do is we provide care packages with essentials, and that includes dry food, 5-kilo bag of rice, things that will sustain them for a week. The second thing is we host food donation drives that happen twice a week, and we feed 1,000 people with this program. We match chefs that weren't working and kitchens that weren't being used, as well as producers that had a lot of overstock items, and then basically match those resources together to convert them into hot meals. And on top, we also have a channel where people can alert us when they need help, or if they know someone that needs the help, which are not part of a big community, or if nobody knows that they need help. Our big goal is that we want to help as many people as possible. But because we started from scratch, that meant we had no affiliations and no network. So it really forced us to be creative and scale quickly by finding partners. It also meant that we had the full freedom to partner with any organization that we wanted, with companies, with groups, to be able to deploy help quickly across the country. With our group, we pay no salary and we have no overhead cost. So we allocate all the money that we raise to the cause directly. And because we're a volunteer group, we welcome anyone who asks to help with open arms. We have youth leaders, police, community leaders, as well as expats and young people that help us in many provinces to plan and execute projects. So it's truly a collective effort, and we're really grateful for all of our donors, volunteers, and partners. The main challenge that we tried to address was the fact that everyone is affected during COVID. So we didn't want to leave anyone.
Can I ask you to wrap up in the next couple of sentences?
Yes, sure. And so what we saw that was we had to keep adapting, and our strategy changed a lot to meet the demands. Thank you, Lana.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And this has certainly been a very inspiring movement to see it grow from really just Natalie to a very large volunteer-driven organization. And along that same vein, I would like to now introduce our next speaker, Mr. Sakson Ruipirom, the founder of COVID Relief Bangkok, another organization that's been doing great humanitarian work.
Hello. 3 minutes is really short, so I'm going to speak really, really fast. So I'm going to just share my screen really quick. Okay. Can you see everything now? Okay. Can you see my screen? Hello?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so COVID Relief Bangkok. Okay, we have, this is how we started basically in March when I run an organization called Aid, which is we do with healthcare and education for underserved youth in Thailand. So basically how we work is there's several partners in COVID relief. So we have the NGO sectors, which is City and several organizations. Then we have the academia structure. We have government structure, which is health volunteers, and we have the private and the donors. So basically everything kind of started in March when a lot of our programs were getting canceled. So we work a lot in schools all over Thailand. We work with in detention centers, work in community centers. So because of COVID, the program started to get canceled. And my initial reaction was, okay, do I wait, you know? And it didn't seem like things were getting any better. So I realized we couldn't wait. And we happened to be lucky that we work in a community. So I run, City also runs a social impact platform, a cafe in a social impact hub called Bangkok 1899 Cultural Hub. And also we're connected to another center called FREC, which is a Foreign Research and Engagement Center. And what FREC has is it's basically an NGO hub. And so there's tons of NGOs inside that hub. So we're all in one ecosystem. So when COVID relief started, when COVID started, it was just all natural for us to all get together. So when I was thinking about it, one of the director of Ford Research and Education, his name is Scott Chang. So we were discussing, how do we go about this? We have our group. So the first thing we thought about was data. So there's so many people in Bangkok that need help, but how do we know where do we go first? So the first person I contacted, which is part of our group, is USL. So USL, they do urban studies lab. They do basically community data, community development. So they work with the government, they work with the BMA. So I talked to Jan Pan, which is the director of urban studies lab. we were already working together with Sati. So he's asked them, so we have to go about this. It's an emerging right now. A lot of people need support. So how do what kind of data do you have that we can kind of go to the right people, the right locations? So what he did is he got the information over with the BMA, and we developed a map, a vulnerability map. So what that means is there's three criteria. So density, low income, and elderly. So we created a score. So 7 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, and we created a map so we knew which areas we're going to go first. So if you look at this map, we pretty much covered 80% of this map already. So when we go to these maps, and then this is a map that we make from each district. So this breaks up. This is the information that we break up of the aging population, how many people are aging, what income people have in each area. This is Sati. So we do project management partners. Our other partner is SOS. So they do logistics. So their comfortability is they do food surplus. So they'll do food surplus with hotels, supermarkets to collect and distribute to community partners or needed underserved communities. So they're our logistics partners. Our other partner is a government health volunteer. So every district has a government health office. So what they do is they have health volunteers. So these health volunteers, they live within the community.
I can ask you to wrap up in the next few sentences, please.
Okay, I'm going to jump to health volunteers. I'm going to jump to other partners. Social givers, how we do our funding. There's through transparency. We have a media partner, which is BrandThink. We have tons of volunteers. Our volunteers is what made us be able to do this much. So this is our relief pack. We've covered, this is how much we've recovered tax-wise. So meals, over 300,000 meals, over 480,000 individuals. Now we cover about 2,400 families per week. Okay, communities, most vulnerable, low-income, elderly, densely populated, migrant workers, unregistered communities. We're working on our phase 2 program, which we already started. We do mental health training right now for health volunteers. So we do that every Saturday. So we've covered 7 districts so far, and we've been working with Cody to develop community kitchens. We're also working on a job skills and training model and a microfinancing model. This is one of our health volunteers' first aid class. So real quick, that's the gist. So 3 minutes is really short.
Great. Thank you so much, Sax. I'm sorry to all of our speakers that I can't have you all for longer, but thankfully we will have time for more questions later on. So we look forward to hearing more from all of you. On that note, a quick announcement for all of our attendees. You can submit your questions for the speakers throughout this session in the comment box on YouTube. My colleague Flavia will be going through and consolidating questions so that we can have a good selection of those questions from you at the end of the session. So thank you again, Sax. It's really interesting to hear about how we are redirecting existing efforts and teams towards these unique challenges, and especially how we're gathering data in this really new territory. And on to our next speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Ornsiri Junchaya, the Deputy Director of Chula Langkorn University Technology Center. Ornsiri, over to you.
Thank you, Lana. So I'm very honored to be invited to this talk today. Thank you so much. My father actually worked at the United Nations Environment Program for 14 years, and I think he's actually watching from DC. So hi, Dad. So let me introduce you to the Chula Langkorn University Technology Center. So we have been founded for around 1.5 years now, and we focus on deep tech research commercialization. So we work very closely with our faculty members and researchers to take their research and help them build them into startups so that communities, citizens, and people can benefit from research within the university. Let me just share my screen. All right. So we focus on deep tech research and commercialization, taking them from laboratories to markets. We focus on 2 verticals. So we do medical technologies, developing medical devices, in vitro diagnostics, and the other vertical we do is artificial intelligence, data science, and robotics. So we help bridge the gap between research that comes out of academia and translating them into useful products and services that industry can use. And we help develop them through what's called the Hi, sorry, I think I just went out there for a second. Can you let me know if you can still see my screen for the presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
All right, thanks. So we help develop them through what's called the technology readiness level, and that's taking them from prototype stage all the way to pilot. And this is our platform. So we help work with industry, academia, and government to take deep tech research out into the markets. We focus on the intellectual property protection and also working with regulatory bodies and policymakers, as well as government to help commercialize these projects. We're also involved with the Thai FDA in the Medical Product Consortium of Thailand. And this is a consortium between 27 different member institutes, including the Stock Exchange of Thailand as well. So we really aim to bring research into the market so that they benefit society. What we've done to address the COVID situation is that we have set up a special task force to really come up with innovations to help address this current pandemic. So some of you tuning in might have seen in the news, we've developed the COVID-19 rapid test kit. And this is a rapid test that tests for the antibodies within patients. We have donated over 100,000 of these kits to the Thai government and are actively working in the southern provinces where there is a outbreak of the COVID-19. And we have also developed 3D printed face shields. So for this one, we actually worked with some industry partners and came up with a prototype to mass manufacturing within 7 days. And this expands our capabilities to produce thousands of face shields per day. So we've worked with local hospitals all around the country and donated the 3D printed face shields. Another interesting research.
I'm curious if you can wrap up in the next few sentences, please.
Absolutely. That we've developed is the COVID pre-screening system. So this one is being currently clinically tested in Samut Prakan Hospital, and we hope that this will be a point of care test that can be deployed at airports, at hospitals, in elderly care facilities, so wherever it's needed best. I'll wrap up just now. So thank you so much, Lana.
Thank you so much. It's really inspiring seeing how quickly these things can really move from prototype to implementation. It's been really incredible. I'd like to remind all of our attendees, if you're having any trouble adding your questions in YouTube, just refresh the link if you opened it early. And additionally, don't forget to open up the virtual Post-it activity so you can add your ideas. We'd really love to hear from you. And with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Winarin Lulitanonda, the co-founder of Thailand Clean Air Network. Winarin, over to you.
Thanks, Lana, and thank you everybody to ESCAP and also to the Circular Design Lab for organizing this amazing event. I know we have to speak really, really fast, and I'm a fast speaker, so hopefully I'll get everything in. Let me quickly share my screen with you guys. Okay, so I'm the co-founder of Thailand Clean Air Network. We started up in early 2019, really because we were struck by how bad the air pollution in Bangkok was, and we were quite aware of how bad things are up north. I will run through this, really walking through how, apart from working on air pollution, I also am a lot of people within my group are also involved on the COVID situation as well. So I'll talk through about how COVID and air pollution links up, and then talk through about the situation on air pollution more generically. Okay, so how do they link up? what we've done on the COVID situation is we've actually developed a group called the Thai Safe Network, and really to help build resiliency within the community. So really to give information, we provide everything from mental support to actual support in terms of looking for jobs, upskilling, providing all sorts of information about how to better protect themselves and their families. We also realize that the hardest hit groups are really the vulnerable groups who do not have access to be able to sell their products to market. And so we've developed what we call the happymarket.net, which is an e-commerce platform where we help low-income communities who are not able to actually do that, to upskill themselves and be able to access market. There's a lot of hand-holding involved. Let me provide this quick picture, which is really to sum all the issues up. And I think it shows quite well. So in the first little wave we see, this is COVID, right? And it is a huge global pandemic, and it's a huge health emergency. But what comes that's bigger than COVID, obviously, is the economic recession. And the much bigger issue, which was mentioned before, is climate change. And within climate change, air pollution definitely falls very, very much within that realm. Let me try and put numbers into perspective. The number of deaths from COVID in Thailand thus far is a very sad number. It's 58 deaths. The number of deaths of Thai people, we're looking about, we add 3 more zeros. So it's almost 59,000 deaths in Thailand due to air pollution. What is the link? The link basically is that air pollution causes, being in an area with higher air pollution basically compromises your health and makes you more susceptible to respiratory illnesses such as COVID, right? What's the situation in Thailand? The situation in Thailand is that our air quality standards is pretty much subpar relative to global standards and standards developed in other developed world. This is a depiction of Thailand's air quality standards of PM 2.5. And on the top right is to show a picture of how small PM 2.5 is relative to a hair. It's about it's 1/25 of the size of the width of a human hair. That's how small it is, right? And the standards that we use are very much below standards. So right now there was a study done by University of Chicago to see how Thailand ranks in terms of the quality of life, in terms of how sooner we're all passing away, unfortunately, because of air pollution. And based on the latest report out from the University of Chicago, Thailand actually ranks as the 7th worst polluting country in the world. On average, we're dying about 2 years earlier because of air pollution. And it gets worse depending on where you live. So if you live in Chiang Mai and up north, unfortunately, Chiang Mai people are dying about 3.6 years earlier. If you're in Bangkok, we're losing about 2.4 years. And that's a lot. The worst parts of the country is probably up in Chiang Rai and in Mae Hong Son, where they're losing almost 4 years of their lives. Okay, what is the root cause of air pollution? Very simply, it is about structural violence. It's about capitalism versus maintaining nature. This picture, I think, from the New York Times, a lot of people may have seen this, pretty much captures the issues quite well, right? Where basically we look at a man who sits in a cave with children, and he say, yes, the planet was destroyed, but for a very beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders. And that's basically, in a very nutshell, the real issue behind air pollution. It's about unsustainable growth. Okay, let me talk to you very quickly about who we are. The Thailand Clean Air Network.
Up in the next few sentences.
Okay, sure, very quickly. We're trying to resolve this problem. We take a very holistic, long-term focus on the issue. We are a multidisciplinary group. We bring people from all walks with different disciplines. We use a very bottom-up design in trying to resolve this problem. We are an open group, so we've got an expanding network of people. We're pretty much still primarily a voluntary-based group, but we have some partial supports from various different organizations, such as Thai BBS or the Thai Promotional Health Group. And with that, let me just end very, very quickly with a very last quote, which is basically that anything that you're interested in doing really is not going to happen if you can't breathe the air or drink the water. This is something so critical to all of us, and it's something we shouldn't sit out. We definitely need to do something about. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those very inspiring and interesting remarks, particularly drawing that those similarities out between what's affecting climate change and what's affecting this pandemic. The fact that we need really comprehensive solutions to these issues. It's very cutting-edge research. It's my pleasure now to introduce our final speaker, Mr. Joanne Phal, the CEO and co-founder of GetLinks. Over to you, Joanne.
Hey, everyone. Not CEO anymore, but still co-founder. Thank you. I think this is really interesting, what's going on in this call. We have a very, very limited amount of time, but incredibly interesting people. So I will try to be concise and tell you how within the last 2 months we have created a $1.8 million support income fund by crowdsourcing it and to support those Thai talents who got to lose their job during the COVID. So as Gita really well explained, Kungita, with the lockdown and the social distancing, not only the rule of business have been changing, right? The entire social economic paradigm have been redefined with the social distancing. And in Thailand, more than over the 36 million of active workforce, the Ministry of Labor announced that in June, 7 million Thais lost their job last 60 days due to COVID. That's 19.4% of the total workforce in Thailand. So as you can see on my screen, this is the biggest crisis since the Second World War. Even though we are with GetLink's private business, we had to do something a bit social about it. So what we've done is two things. First is on the job side, we've decided to crowdsource this fund of income support by working with more than 900 companies to generate 4,000 what we call remote jobs, jobs that could be done without having to go to the office. So we've built this platform which gather up all these opportunities that can be done remotely, and we push that to our database of talents. And those jobs are not digital tech jobs. They just required a computer, and some of them just required a phone, for example, customer service. So we've gathering all these jobs. This is where the $1.8 million income have been deployed, because all these jobs are jobs that are feeding families of people who got unemployed recently. The second thing, as Saxon mentioned, jobs and skill, particularly skill, is an important pillar for the post-COVID new unemployed era, right? So what do we do with these 19% of the Thailand workforce who won't have an income anymore? And can they actually ever work again on the previous job? And for many of them with the digital transformation, of course not. So they need to reskill. So what we've been working on is with Adaptivity, which is one of on our group company. We have created this Adaptivity cause, which aim to give access to digital incomes to minorities through our education platform and career coaching platform. So we've been teaching groups of 20 to 1,000 people, basically basic digital skill sets, so they could access to work in the digital economy. You can see one of the workshops we have done here with kids from Krong Thai, and we're preparing a couple of other workshops in Chiang Mai and Bangkok, working with local NGOs, and we are basically giving access to this digital training completely free. Plus, on top of that, we're advising those kids to actually how can they get a career, right? So for the one in Chiang Mai we're doing next month, we'll be working with Muay Thai schools because, of course, the tourism is in decline in Thailand, and Muay Thai maybe not a bright career as before. So we want to give them a backup, and we want to have these kids to be able to code, or at least to be digitally literate, so they could eventually start having digital careers. And I think this is really important. We'd love to work with the UN on this to increase the frequency and the scale of this initiative, because we have been created this framework that have been really working well for us, and we'd love to develop it more. So yeah, that's pretty much that's it for me. So number one is jobs, creating 4,000 online income jobs last 2 months, and creating this new skill pillar for underprivileged communities to be included into the digital economy. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. It's great to hear about what's happening in the economics and really what can happen for the future to increase job security and to share more jobs and training. I'd like to move on now to asking each of our speakers a few specific questions. These are questions prepared by us, after which we will move on to our questions from the audience. So please do continue sending questions on YouTube. So this first question is for both Natalie and Sax. For those who are interested in supporting local communities, what are the best ways to help? What particular skills are most needed at this moment to respond to the crisis? If we can have Natalie first and then Sachs, please.
Hi. Yes. So I think the most important thing is reach out, because everyone has skills and resources that could be helpful. We have people of all ages that help us, from doing deliveries, packing stuff, to even fundraising. And what we really need right now, now that everyone's going back to work, is helping with project coordination, social media, as well as marketing. And I think what is needed in the moment of crisis is empowering communities to reskill as well as upskill the individuals so that they can stand up on their own. And I think with what Joanne said about, remote jobs, that's definitely something to look into in the future. On the bigger picture, I think, what I saw was a lot of organizations had their own group of volunteers. And I think it'll be really helpful in the future to be able to pool resources efficiently in a centralized platform so that, no matter which foundation it is, everyone, including volunteers, can see how they can help out. Yeah. Zach?
Sorry, Sachs, I think you're on, your mic is on mute. Sachs, we don't hear you. Maybe I'll just go on to the next question, and then Sachs, we'll come back to you in just a moment. Hopefully the mic is working then.
Lana, you're on mute.
Sorry, Sachs, I think you're on mute as well. I think we'll just move on to a question for Ornsiri and come back to Sachs when the mic is fixed. Ornsiri, given how contagious the novel coronavirus is, how has it impacted health at the community level? How is the healthcare industry responding to community level challenges? Ornsiri, over to you.
That's a great question. So what we're seeing now is that Thailand has been amazing at containing the spread of the coronavirus, and that is due to our amazing healthcare system and the many doctors and nurses that have really, risen up to the challenge. It has impacted a lot of our community systems in terms of the lower resource communities aren't able to come and get the testing that they required. The number of tests also has to increase in Thailand. So what we've actually gone and done is that we've had to partner with local governments and cities and essentially bring our doctors down to the field and at the forefronts of these clustered centers and provide the testing facilities and testing medical devices to really help. And we've been able to partner with a lot of great hospitals all throughout Thailand that are really interested in working with us, even from early clinical trials and testing. And they've really, embraced working with all of the doctors from around the country.
Great, thank you so much. And this next question is for Winarin. In the current pandemic, we experience issues in all sectors. That includes health, economy, technology, and so forth. What is the role of multidisciplinary work in this current pandemic? And also, are there long-term benefits to adopting a multidisciplinary approach? Over to you, Winarin.
Thanks so much, Lana. I think what I personally have seen was I was very much touched by the efforts by the doctors who've done all that they can in pushing on the healthcare system. We're very lucky in Thailand. We've got an amazing healthcare system. It was developed since 1977 with the health volunteers. But what I think came to light is that there are limits to how much even the medical professionals can do, because this issue is so huge, it's so widespread, and it affects so many facets of the economy beyond just the health system. And it really needs an approach that combines everybody. It needs the private sector, it needs economists, it needs tech people, it needs communication folks. And this was what we have found that was lacking at because we were sort of being hit with this sort of left field But drawing from what we learned from the air pollution work that we do, there are similarities. I mean, air pollution is an issue that is so cross-cutting that it affects so many sectors across the country, and it really is primarily from our perspective. It's a health issue front and foremost. It transcends politics, it transcends religion, it transcends race. And I think what COVID has done, which is absolutely amazing when I listen to all these speakers, is it brings forward a lot of people to really kind of pull up their sleeves to help. But at a much bigger systemic way to kind of resolve this, we actually need every facet of society to come together and work to bring this all to bear to fruit. And I think one of the things from somebody who's been working, I've worked previously at the World Bank Group and know how institutions operate at a multidisciplinary level. And I think that there are lessons to be drawn from that. And if we can actually draw that and work hand in hand, in tandem rather than parallel, I think we can achieve a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you. And coming back to Saxon, I see you're back online. Coming back to this question, for those who are interested in supporting local communities, what are the best ways to do so? And what are some of the most valuable skills right now?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, internet issues. So I think first it's important to like separate. So within the communities, there's several levels of like being affected by COVID. So there's the people who've lost their jobs, and there's the people who've gotten less income. So it sounds like odd, but for the people who've lost their jobs, what I've seen is most important is support. So in Thai culture, it's very common to say like like su, like you're gonna get over it. But in a mental health aspect or just a mental support aspect, that's not always the best way to be like, hey, it's going to get better. It's more like, how can I support you and how can I listen to you? Not that you're going to find a job again, because nobody knows, so it's better to just be like, how all the community to be listening in your community. So step one and step two is to support local. So, your local noodle shop, your local businesses who most of the people I've spoken to, they've lost 70% of their incomes. The motorcycle taxis, the noodle shops, street food, they've lost up to 70%, and that's usually not a lot in the first place. So they only have 30% left. So just support local as much as possible. So I would say those are the two main things you can do to help your community. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very helpful info. Yeah. And finally, I have a question for Juan. As Thailand begins to reopen the economy, what social and economic challenges are we likely to face, and in what sectors do you expect to see some of the most change?
Right. This is a really great point because the International Labour Organization mentioned that 125 million people globally lost their job, right? So as we see, 7 million is a lot for Thailand, but that's just an AP paradigm event, right? So globally, a lot of jobs were already in the process of being lost, actually. There were high-risk jobs. I think there is a 2017 report from the World Bank mentioning the list of the countries that have their workforce at risk. Thailand have 74% of the workforce that is at risk due to digital transformation, right? So the factories, automotive factories in Thailand, which drives a lot of workers, for example, are one of these sectors. And of course, social distancing have been just accelerating that. Right. If you look at the shopping malls in Thailand, you have many salespeople, right? So all these people have been laid off recently. You've seen the IPO of Central Group happening in Q4, and this Central Group have become really at risk recently, right? Because they just couldn't pay the rent of the locations, right? So of course they're not going to be able to rehire as many salespeople in the shopping mall. So the question is not are these jobs going to come back into the market? They won't. This is clear. The question is, what is the government and NGOs as well as private companies doing about it, right? And obviously, rehiring a salesperson, for example, going to be very hard. But retraining this person into other jobs that are nearby is actually easy. Not that hard, right? And so I think this is really where the Thai government, particularly DIPA, have been working very hard on developing these education funds, which we're working with them now to scale that up. And I think the UN have several projects. I think Kungita mentioned the ICT virtual platform. Yes, these are the things that need to be put in place. But also it's about thinking on how these people will, in the minorities, will be able to access that. because not everyone have an internet connection, and not everyone have an environment to actually learn, even though they have an internet connection. So adaptivity, we've been working with McKinsey on that program. They have a program called McKinsey Generation, which is really looking at what is the environment to create potential career shifts from a traditional career into a digital career. And it's not only an internet connection and an access to Udemy that is needed. It's actually coaching. It's actually environmental change, because you cannot learn digital if you have to also cook, and if you're a mom, and if you also have, so many things to do in your house, right? So you need to have a proper environment. And I think digital transformation in that sense will really need the help of the NGOs to be able to bring as many people as possible in this new digital economy, because that's where the money will be. That's where the money will be. And to be honest, economical inclusion will go exclusively, to my eyes, into bringing more and more of these minorities into the digital economy, as the traditional jobs will be more and more disappearing. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So we have a few minutes now. I'm going to share some questions from the audience that have been shared, and I'll also remind the audience to please submit your comments in the virtual post-its, as we'll be sharing those at the end of this session as well. So first question is for Natalie. It is so good to know what humanitarian organizations have been doing. Can you share any insights you've seen of the impacts of the COVID situation among migrant communities? Over to you, Natalie. I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Okay, so we've helped over 900 migrant workers and stateless individuals across Thailand. And what we saw was it's really, really hard for them. A lot of times they're really afraid to go outside, and they can't work. So I think what needs to be done is to be able to find ways to support them in a sustainable way, and figure out, for example, like how can the government play a bigger role in this to support? Can you repeat the question? Because I also missed the last part. I'm sorry.
To share any insights you have on how the situation has impacted migrant communities in particular.
Yes. So yeah, we get a lot of help requests from foundations in different areas in Ranong, Bangkok. There's urban refugees that need a lot of help. I think in general, it's just like, it just goes to show that, there's a lot of groups that help the Thai communities, but what I saw was they're quite neglected compared to other groups. And so, yeah, we were trying to help and put more effort into that. There's also the 20th of June, which is a Saturday, is the World Refugee Day. And yeah, I just hope that more organizations will, start focusing more, because they really do need a lot of help, especially with the ones that have children. We get like at least 30 messages a day in our help channel asking for milk powder and money to buy rice. So that's something we get on a daily basis.
Great, thank you so much. The next question is for Saxon. Is there any data to share? This was a weak point in some other cases, and we're wondering if there are particularly high risks in Thailand with regard to the data that you've found. You're also welcome to comment on the question about migrants if you have had any experience.
Okay, so with the data, it's actually pretty interesting. So when we started with data, we started with government data. So it's a wider range by district. So when you go to the district, you'll see that there's like unregistered communities, there's migrant working communities, there's some communities which there actually is no data for that. So what we do is when we talk to the health center, they'll be like, oh, this volunteer will be like, oh, this community lives next door to here. So we'll go into that community and we'll do research and we'll map that community as well. So you'll see that there's so many people, like we ask them about the insurance money or the government money. Some of them, they don't even know how to fill out the form. I tried to fill out the form myself. It's it's quite complicated. So and then with the way COVID going on, it's not like you can go door to door and be like, hey, this is how we fill it out. So then there's this big technology barrier. There's about the space they're living in, the sanitation. So I think that that's kind of, I guess you could call it blind spots, but that's with any country or any community. There's and we're trying to map that. I think we have the most up-to-date map right now, as far as community maps within the country now. So this can be shared with other NGOs, other groups that are tackling different issues. You know, from there's, as far as pollution, there's garbage, tons of garbage. There's actually, I went to it's actually called a garbage collecting community. So they sleep within the garbage and that's what they sell. So even garbage they can't sell now. So I mean, that is a big, there's a lot of risks there in all these communities, and hopefully it can be more opened up so more support can go in. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have time for one more question. So I'm going to ask a general question that I'll then ask Ornsiri, Winarian, and Juan to please respond to. And I'm going to limit you please to 1 minute each to stay within the time. The question is, what are key factors that enable relatively fast collaboration and innovation these days? Are they COVID-driven, or how can they be leveraged at other times too? So beginning with Ornsiri.
Yes, I think in the time of a pandemic, we've really seen Thailand come together, and all of the constructed borders that we usually have in terms of competition, these just have all gone down. So every phone call that I've reached out to, whether it's like industry, government, academia, everyone has just been so willing to help out. I think unfortunately right now, it is limited to the emergency driven by COVID. I think that within this horrible thing that has happened, I hope that this essence of collaboration still lasts and transcends this pandemic. And I think coming together as a community, hosting more events together, online and offline, I think this will really help with continuing this legacy of collaboration within Thailand.
Thank you. Winarian, would you like to address the question?
Yeah, to build on what Kunan Siri said, yes, I agree. The beauty of Thailand culturally is we do come together very, very well in cases of emergency. What I do hope, though, is we continue beyond an emergency situation, because that's when you really have systemic change and things really will make a difference in the bigger picture. Just to take the situation, drawing from COVID and also air pollution, one of the things that that you see happening, unfortunately, from a policy level, is that actions are taken during the air pollution episodes, which is just a few months at the beginning of the year and the tail end, or between April and May, and in up north. But then the working committees dissolve and they focus on something else, and you cannot solve a problem if you view it in a very short term when it's a very systemic issue. And it goes the same with COVID, because unfortunately COVID is not the only pandemic that we will be facing going forward, particularly in light of climate change. Yep, thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Over to Juan.
Yeah, so I represent the private sector here a little bit. I think we've been really seeing something incredible last couple of months. As mentioned, this is the biggest crisis in the world since the World War II. But as a difference, that the World War II was a world war, but it was really covering a couple of countries, really. And for the first time in the history of humanity, 7 billion people have been grounded into their house for 3 months, with no distinction of race, age, money, wealth, whatever. And you can see the same thing of locking down social distancing has happened in really random country in Africa, and in Southeast Asia, and in France. And I think this is the first time in the history of humanity that we've been really living the same thing with a global threat, not created by humans ourselves, but by the nature. And I think this global emergence of new association, of movements, of actions would be great if we could have this global consciousness related to climate change. Because as Wina mentioned, COVID is just the appetizer of what is coming for the decade. I actually spent the last 6 months writing a book about this called The Adaptive Economy, and talking about what's going to happen over technology disruption, environmental changes, and political reshuffling for the next decade ahead, mainly due to climate change and technology disruption. A lot of things going to be coming up, really. And I think the only way to overcome this will be to work together with this new collective consciousness. And when I say work together, I think what we see today is great, but it's only NGO people mainly, right? And unfortunately, the private sectors and the governments and the big, organization like the UN still work very, very well disconnected, right? I'm sure the UN have done so many things last 2 months and that I never heard about, and that my colleagues at McKinsey never heard about. But these colleagues at McKinsey tried also to do something, but I think we lack these quick connections today because there is hierarchy, because it's very, very hard for me to reach out to Kevin or to Gita if I want to, right? But in the same time, I could have your WhatsApp number, right? But unless I have that connection, I can't do that, right? So I think even though we have the tools, social media, WhatsApp, communications that our grandparents would have dreamed of, I think we still lack of some platforms really creating connection in those emergency situations for us to take action across the business sector, the public sector, and the NGO sector. I think that would be great if we could change that. I'm not saying how, but I can see where the direction is to improve this.
Thank you so much, Chula. And I think we've heard from all of our speakers that collaboration is really critical, and it's so important that we find more ways to do that. So we're thrilled to have all of you from very different spaces, and we hope we can continue to collaborate for these different issues. I did have one question that many people were interested in, so I wanted to ask it briefly for Natalie and for Saxon. Many people are interested in where can we find more details about volunteering for opportunities and ways to get involved in your organization. If I can ask you to answer very briefly.
Yes, so if you just go to our Facebook and then you just write us a message via Messenger, I'll be on the other side asking about your expertise, how you can help. That's the fastest way, or just contact us, go to covidthailandaid.com. Oh, and one more thing, you can also add us online, and that's just COVID Thailand Aid, and that's also me answering on the other side. That's from us. So, and Zach, over to you.
Yeah, for us, it's the same thing, just Facebook. So COVID Relief Bangkok, you can come on the Facebook group and just drop us a message. We have tons of volunteers helping, and we'll reply to you. We're always looking for more volunteers, so it'd be great for everybody to come in. Thank you.
Wonderful. So I hope that answers everyone's questions. And lastly, I want to hand it over to Courtney Lawrence, who's going to wrap up this research and development activity and provide some concluding remarks based on what our speakers have shared, as well as what all of you have shared in your ideas. Courtney, over to you.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much, everybody, for donating an hour of your time to both contribute, but also those that are watching on the live stream. We have over 100 people. Some have been joining through the R&D session. So what I'd like to do is just share some of the key themes, which a lot of were around the technology angle, as well as some of the opportunities for more innovative ways to be actually crowdsourcing more of the contributions from people. You'll notice on the screen that I'm sharing, I went ahead and made a word cloud of some of the responses on the back end of the virtual Post-it note. So from all the content that you shared, this is the main thing that came up, which was around opportunity. So feel free to play around with this map. If it's your first time to Kumu, you can notice you can zoom in and zoom around and start noticing specifically what people's contributions were sharing as we went. So over to you, Lana.
Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone who has attended. It's always great to hear from you. We will make that Kumu map available in the next couple of days so that you can continue to see it and see what kind of ideas came from here. So thanks to all of our speakers. If I can just sum up a few of our key takeaways from today, one that I've heard again and again is listen. Listen locally, support locally, and find out what's happening in your community. We've heard a lot about multidisciplinary collaboration. This is absolutely a problem that affects everyone, and the pandemic, much like climate change, these are global issues that affect everything. And whereas the pandemic is a very immediate issue, with climate change, we have a bit of a slow burn, a very long and slowly happening problem, but equally important. So multidisciplinary collaboration is critical, as well as collaboration among different parties within the same organizations or within the same industry. This is a time when everybody needs to be helping, and organizations that maybe might have been competitors in a different context need to work together. This is really the time to let go of any types of discriminations or any bias and really work together. We've heard a lot about the long-term lessons from the pandemic and how they can be applied to help us solve issues of climate change. And lastly, we heard a lot about adaptivity. The world is always changing, and there is a lot of value in retaining this adaptivity we heard about from Joanne. And particularly in this era, technology really helps us maintain that adaptability. So thank you all for joining. This has been a pleasure. I only wish I could have had you for longer because it's been so interesting. And to our attendees, thanks again for your ideas. I remind you one more time to please register using the link. We'd love to hear about who was here. And if you'd like to include your email address, we'll keep you abreast of future events. Thank you very much, and goodbye to our speakers.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. You're magnificent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.